Hello everybody, my name is Liam Walken and we are jumping straight into things on this one. The clients had purchased this home about a year prior to us being here, and they started out by trying to renovate this bathroom themselves, but upon opening a few things up, they quickly realized maybe not the best idea. They informed us that the previous owner was a property manager, and the more we demoed, the more that became very clear. Every project we do, we typically find a couple of things that were done improperly, but never everything, which was the case with this one. As the demo progresses in this video, I think you'll start to see some things that just ain't right, so keep an eye out for all of that. As with all of our demos, we're going to start with the easy to remove large items like the vanity, tub, and toilet, which you saw us take out, and now moving on to the glass enclosure here. After that, the next priority is to open up the walls and cap off any of the pressurized water lines. That way we can minimize how long the water to the house is off. A really nice change of pace for this demo was the fact that there were no actual tiles to be removed. The shower walls here being a panel system and then the floors being a laminate made this demo just a little bit easier on the back. The tin ceiling in a bathroom, definitely a first for me and hopefully a last. And you might be thinking, what a weird design choice, but upon pulling this thing down, I think it might have been more of a cover-up than a design choice. Now, my initial reaction upon seeing that wet spot was, uh-oh, the roof has a leak. But upon further inspection, no, the roof was absolutely fine. Turns out that duct taping saran wrap over top of drywall with no insulation above it in an attic space, and then covering that up with plywood and a tin ceiling creates a real moisture trap. Who would have thought? And if that wasn't bad enough, it was only made worse by the fact that the exhaust fan duct did not port outside of the house, say through the roof or something. Instead, the duct just ran directly over that spot, pumping even more moisture into it. Look, I can look past mistakes that are made in ignorance, I might not know better, but this just seemed straight malicious. And when you find something like that, it's kind of the point where you realize, okay, we got to open up everything because who knows what else is hiding in these walls, in the ceiling, in the floor. And it's a good thing we did. A lot of the framing was just chopped up. Electrical boxes were buried. Plumbing was done incorrectly. It was just the whole shebang was off. As I was prying this piece of plywood free from its fasteners, it was just enough movement on those water lines back there to form a small pinhole leak on one of the T's below, which we very quickly realized was the case. So we were able to turn water off really quickly, open up the floor and dry up all of the water that was just kind of sitting on top of the drywall here and dry it out. So fortunately, all was well here. We were able to catch that quick enough and the pinhole leak was small enough that it wasn't a real issue. But man, do I ever hate working with pressurized water lines. Opening up even more of the subfloor to make changes for all of the plumbing, as well as recess the floor in this area for the curbless shower we'll be putting in. And you'll notice a whole lot of mold in that one area there, and that is from, believe it or not, a previous leak. That leak had actually destroyed the ceiling below this area, so that did end up getting repaired later on. But all of that mold there kind of cut out the majority of it, and then any areas that weren't too bad, it was just kind of a surface level area of mold, I did just hit with mold killer, I don't know, like half a dozen times throughout this project, just to try and kill any of those spores. And then making all of the changes to our drains and venting for the various plumbing fixtures. This is the drain for the new vanity, and it will be that same vanity going in with the double sink. However, unlike the previous install, we will be putting in some P-traps and vents for this one. So that's kind of what we're just working on here. This is what I would call our most standard kind of shower system, where we're going to have the mixing valve handheld to the side with a grab bar so you can adjust the height, and then the rain head at the top. Just using the laser to get that straight. And as we begin to run water lines in this wall, you'll notice just how busy it is. And this is why I'm such a huge believer in 2x6 framing for walls like this. But of course, the builders will never do that. And it's fine, we make it work. But man, having 2x6 framing here would have made everything so much easier. I do get some questions about this. The PEX that we use now is PEX A, which is the expansion version. Now, where some people get confused is on occasion in this project, we even will have a couple cases of this. You'll see us using the crimp rings on this PEX, and that's because PEX A can be expanded or crimped, whereas PEX B is a crimp-only system. You may be wondering why not just always use the expansion then? It's just sometimes a case of what fittings are available, or maybe if we're supplied with a rough-in fixture that already has PEX B connectors on it, then of course we have to use that. But otherwise, I do really like the expansion tool. Although, again, if you are a homeowner, the crimp style system is going to make a lot more sense for you. Now you can get a more clear picture of just how much of the floor we opened up here. And we're just going to run our new PEX lines everywhere. So we're going to pick up the toilet, the tub filler, and of course the shower and vanity on that one wall there. So we're just going to run these lines everywhere they need to go, and then we can go back and strap them. This is the rough-in for the tub filler, and like all of the plumbing fixtures in this bathroom, it will be Ryobell. And Ryobell's tub filler is decent, I would say. I do like kind of how they do the rough-in here. They get you to bolt it through all this framing to make it really secure. But then when it's time for finishing, you come back with the faucet itself, and it's just a few Allen keys to hold it in. So it seems counterproductive, getting the rough-in all sturdy just to have a few Allen keys hold it in the end. But overall, it's fine, I guess. Taking a new 2x8 and just sistering up a section of the chotched framing here. We're going to get some framing on both sides of this. Ideally, we would have ran from one wall to the other. However, I was more than confident in just doing it this way, using a whole lot of construction adhesive and nails to really secure it in place. And then again, we'll get another piece of framing on the other side there as well. And then recessing these 2x4s, the thickness of our subfloor for that curbless shower. Our goal here is to get the top of our plywood to be flush with the top of the joists themselves, and this is going to save how much we have to build up the rest of the bathroom floor to get a truly flush and curbless shower. This is a very common scenario in which one of the shower walls is exterior, so we do have to get both our plumbing fixtures and niche on the same wall, which can make things a little bit tight, but with the right amount of measurements and the correct plumbing fittings can make it work. It's just tight is all. But again, you know, you just take your time, measure everything about 16 times, and it'll be okay. Since we have all the floors open right up anyways, just taking some rock wool safe and sound here and insulating these joist cavities that have all of the drains just to help with a little bit of noise suppression to the room below here. And then we'll just take a little bit of blocking here to join the existing subfloor to the new pieces we're putting in. Finally addressing the ceiling. So we just cut out all the old sections of vapor barrier that had any sort of wetness or mold above them, as well as the blown in insulation in those areas. Put up some new vapor barrier. Gonna eventually tuck tape that all to the old, make it fully sealed, put up some drywall, and then we can re-insulate with some new insulation. And of course, same thing for these exterior walls, just all new vapor barrier, stapling it to the framing, and then eventually tuck taping it all together. Getting some rock wool safe and sound in the shared wall here. And I love this product. It's not my favorite thing to work with, but for how much it costs, I just think it's really well worth it. I got it everywhere in my house. A lot of the bathrooms we run into 1/2-inch drywall on the ceilings while the trusses are framed 24 inches on center, which just seems a little crazy. So as that was the case here, that 24-inch framing, we're going with 5/8 inch drywall instead, and it just feels a lot better this way. Creating a couple of half walls. One will divide the vanity and shower, and the other the toilet and the tub. I really like half walls. I think they can add a lot to a space, just kind of break up different areas. Especially nice to kind of separate the toilet, I think. But anyways, just framing it all out, adding a cross piece, and I'm just going to use framing nails to kind of roughly hold them together and go back with some GRKs to really make this thing structurally sound. This here is SurePly. It's just 1/4 inch thick plywood, and we're going to put this down on the existing subfloor just to get a little bit of height. So our shower pan has that established thickness on the edges so that it can have the appropriate slope towards the drain to make that completely flush with the rest of the bathroom floor. We did just have to build it up a little bit. So we got a 1/4 inch here from the SurePly, then we'll have a 1/4 inch from the Dietrich heat that goes on after, and that along with recessing the shower area, it's going to have the two surfaces be at the same height. All of the walls in this bathroom, so with all of our bathrooms, we'll be getting 1/2-inch green board. Just using a variety of different tools to make this a little bit easier. Got the drywall guns, mine with the collated attachment, which makes driving in screws a lot easier. Rotozip here for any boxes, and just trying to get this up. This isn't our strong suit, I really think. But when it comes to boarding, we do sometimes have some gaps, and that's just, I guess we've gotten in the habit of not worrying too much about it. I'd rather get this stuff up as quickly as we can, then Sebastian go back and pre-fill any of those gaps. And in the meantime, I can start working on waterproofing the shower. It just kind of, the system has evolved that way, I think, and it works out really well. cutting out a hole now in the ceiling for the exhaust fan. So this will be the Panasonic Whisper fan with the Fitz flush mount cover. So I'm just going to cut out the appropriate sized hole for that, get some blocking in all around it. I then mount the Fitz cover to the fan. I attach my wire and just throw it all up, secure it with a couple screws, and I'll go back in after the fact, run my insulated duct to that. And I did have to go to the roof for this one and put in a new roof vent because obviously there was not an existing one. Got that 1/2-inch Curdy board going in on the walls here. And I've been getting a lot of questions recently about mixing systems. A lot of people seemingly wanting to use the Curdy shower pan with Go board on the walls. Can you do it? Sure, you can do anything you want. Will you get Schluter's warranty? No, you won't. But ultimately, that is something that you have to decide for yourself of what's important to you. I've always really liked the Schluter system. And I don't know, I think sticking with the same system just makes it really easy. And getting that warranty is a nice little bonus. I'm just going to go ahead and take a microfiber, damp microfiber, and just get any little amounts of dust off of the SurePly here, because I will be putting down now the peel and stick Ditra heat. So I just want to have a really clean surface for this thing to bond to. It is pressure activated, so after putting this all into place, take a roller and just go around and really compress that into the SurePly itself. And over time, that adhesive will just get stronger and stronger. This has really sped up our process. The peel and stick versions of the Ditra is of course more expensive, but the time saved and not having to work with thin set, it's just worth it to me every time. And now putting in the floor heat that they'll be doing in this bathroom, just taking my grout float, trying to find the appropriate spacing, staying away from any plumbing fixtures, walls, just a bunch of guidelines for distances on that. So I just go around with a Sharpie beforehand to kind of mark off areas I don't want to go into, and you know, getting it everywhere and then redoing it at the end, because go figure, you know, I was like a foot too long or something. So this is very common with floor heat. You gotta find the right route to run. For the waterproofing here, I'm just taking the Curdy trowel. I'm going to take the all set, get that directional troweling going, take the Curdy band over top of that and just doing all the screw holes, seams, and corners. Taking a couple of dull drywall knives to collapse those ridges and get rid of any excess thin set here. I did make note of my drain location, and then I'm going to take a 5-inch hole saw to cut it out, kind of clean everything up, dampen the subfloor in this area, and then take a 1/4 inch by 3/8 inch square notch trowel, get that directional troweling with this thin set everywhere. I'll go back with the Curdy drain, glue it into place with the ABS cement, and then I can get that pan into position. This is a 48 inch by 48 inch Curdy pan. However, I did shorten the size just slightly. Reason being, anytime I'm designing one of these bathrooms, picking out sizes and everything, I have a talk with the clients. I really need to know the size of tile that they'll be using, because when possible, I want to try to adjust sizes accordingly. So let's say the shower could have been 51 inches, but with the size of the floor tile or the wall tile, if we did 48 inches instead, it works out to be 2 tiles exactly, or 3 tiles exactly, instead of having a little sliver tile. Then sacrificing that 3 inches of space on the shower might be worth it for the aesthetic advantage of having just nice full tiles everywhere. And that was the case here. By sizing the shower at just under 48 inches, we were able to have one 24 by 48 tile take up the entire width of the shower for the floor, and then for the walls, 3 tiles at 16 inches in width to have 3 rows of tile on each wall. When it comes time to tiling floors and shower floors, I do a dry fit. So you can see all those tiles already prepped and ready. So I just kind of place them in the pan, made sure they all fit nicely. And then I go back, mix up my thin set and just apply it everywhere. So this is a 1/2 inch square notch trowel. I'm gonna get directional troweling, and I'm gonna start placing my tiles into the shower pan, back buttering them first. I will be using 1/16 inch grout lines with the wedge style system to get rid of any minor amounts of lippage. No, it won't pull it out of the slope though, don't worry. I'm gonna get those into place. And before actually putting the wedges in, I'm just going to get the entirety of these tiles into place, because I have everything pre-cut. It only takes me a few minutes to get all these tiles in, and then I can make sure everything lines up perfectly, then go back with those wedges and lock everything in. I really want to make sure that I have a nice perimeter around that drain, just for aesthetic reasons. That tool I have on the tile is the DeWalt Grabo. It's basically just a vacuum lifter, but it does have that battery attached, so it won't ever let go. Really nice to have when using tile this big. It's not necessary. You know, I've installed many of these tiles without it, but man, does it ever make it easier. And this tile here scared me so much. Sebastian was sick for a couple days, so this tile particularly, there's a lot of tension on that cut, right? It'd be very easy to have that crack there. So once I had that in, I really had a nice deep sigh of relief, because once a tile's set with proper coverage, it's not going to break. But unset porcelain, especially at this size, very easy to crack it with a cut like that. We got the tub drain here, and I'm just going to cover it right up. In the past, I've always pre-cut this, but I think moving forward, this is definitely the right move, because I do have a 4-inch diamond hole saw. You can just set that tile, make note of the location of the drain, come back another day and just cut it out in one go. Makes it really clean and easy, and this will prevent anyone from falling into that hole during the rest of the reno. The tiles here are 16 inches by 48 inches, but of course, they're not truly those sizes, so we couldn't just take 2 tiles and have it reach the ceiling. That would be far too simple. Instead, got to cut the first row down, and using the laser to do this, that way we can have our first row be perfectly level. These are a textured ceramic tile, so I did have these little protection systems on the wedge style clips here, just to make sure nothing chipped putting those wedges or taking them out. And this is the Perfect Level Master leveling system, by the way. No partnership with them or anything, but it is definitely the best system I've used yet. This is Schluter's 1/2 inch deco profile. We're going to use it to both cap the edge of the tiles and key in the custom glasswork at the very end of the project. You can see I got the laser going through the established grout line, and then I'm going to make a mark with the Sharpie 2 1/8 inch above that laser line, and then cut out the niche there. That way, my top of the niche will just be slightly above that grout line, give me a little bit of wiggle room when it comes time to tiling, but I really want that grout line to run straight through either the top or bottom of the niche just for aesthetic reasons, and it's going to look really clean that way. This is a 28 inch by 12 inch Schluter niche, and just kind of centering it with the shower, and then we're going to get that in, waterproof it, and then I also did poke a hole for my low voltage wire that will be for the LED accent lighting in this niche. Got the stone threshold pieces to cap off this half wall, so I'm just going to miter the edges where they meet. I'm going to have that top piece just sloped ever so slightly in towards the shower so we don't have any pooling water on it, and then I'm going to eventually go back with some epoxy to fill the mitered corner there, make it look really nice and clean. The homeowners did actually want the other half wall to get the same threshold pieces on them, but bit of a miscommunication there, so I didn't do that in the same day, but eventually went back and threw on those same threshold pieces on the other half wall. As I briefly touched on, Sebastian did get some food poisoning during this project, so he came in on the weekend to catch up on the mudding. So I want to see some W's in the chat for Sebastian here, guys. Got Latacrete's Spectralock Pro Epoxy Grout. This is just the mini unit. I really like the mini units because it's about the amount that I can work before it gets really tough to work with. And this is going to be in the color Frosty. I really hate installing this. You got to really force it into the grout joints, but I refuse to use anything else at this point. Just how much more durable this stuff is versus a cement-based grout. It's just, you know, I will never go back to a cement-based grout. It just doesn't make sense. It's a shower. It's a wet area and we're putting a porous material in it. I don't get it. One of the biggest holdups I had for this product and why I didn't switch to epoxy grout sooner was because I was afraid of ruining a tile job with epoxy grout haze, but that just isn't really an issue. The way this system works is they give you 2 cleaning packs. So you do your first wash after, I think it's like 15 minutes after install, and then your second wash an hour after that. And they give you this solution, some sort of chemical you put into the water, and it really knocks that haze just out of there. So it's a lot more work, you know. Installing it is tricky. Washing it, you got to be really thorough, and you got to do 2 full washes with the solutions they give you, but it's well worth it. The primer we put in before this was Sherwin-Williams CoverMax, and now the ceiling getting the premium ceiling paint. And I want to make note that primer and paint isn't just for like aesthetic reasons. It serves a purpose, right? It's sealing everything too. So using quality products, especially in a bathroom, it's very important to do so. For any of the corners, tried my best to keep all of the grout out for them so that I could have room to fill them with this silicone. This is Lattisil in the color Frosty to match that grout. I'm going to take some soapy water to spray it down after, go with a popsicle stick to smooth it all out. Final touch up with my finger just to really round it over to make it look clean. And that's going to be the application process here. So a little tricky with the textured tiles, the waviness to them. It's a lot easier with the large format flat tiles, but I was able to get results that I was really happy with. I know what you guys are thinking. What is this? Some new primer so that we can get the gray on a little bit cleaner? No, this is green paint, everybody. We got a color. We did it. Yeah, this was honestly a pretty big moment for Sebastian and I both. I've said this before, I don't hate the gray bathrooms. I like them. I think they're really nice, but it's all we do. The one before this was nice too. We got a nice moody bathroom and I had all sorts of variations here and there, but to just have an outright bold green going in, this was a nice change for us both. I remember coming in one morning and there were some paint chips on the shelf and there were a bunch of greens and I thought I was having my leg pulled, but no, it was the color and this made me very happy. Shout out to the homeowner. Now drilling out the pot light locations, because this does have attic access above, I find it's just so much easier just to keep everything smooth, makes for an easier time of finishing everything, and then we can come out and drill out the pot light holes after the fact and then just loop the wires very easily over kind of the attic space there. So Sebastian's below, he's just gonna poke up at each hole so I can find it through all the insulation above, and then we're just gonna loop wire from hole to hole and then throw in our pot lights. And these pot lights come with 5 different color temperature options, so ranging from like a warm light to a cool light. Homeowners on this one decided to go for that cool 5000K color. So that's what you'll be seeing on this project. I am just going to take a couple of butt splices off of the leads from the tape light to the low voltage wire to join them together and then put some heat shrink over top of that, melt it all into place, and then I'm going to push this up into the track and use the self-adhesive backing to stick it to the aluminum profile up there, and then put a diffuser over top of all of that. This is just a 24 volt high density IP65 plus rated LED tape light. For any miters, when it comes to trim, we just use the CA glue to adhere them together, that instant bond glue. And this is MDF, and I know that's a little controversial. I have been running an experiment in my basement using different trims and how they deal with water, just to make sure this is okay. And a little side note, when we do use this MDF here, we are fully sealing it, so the bottom gets a micro bead of silicone to ensure it's fully watertight. Judging by the way my experiment's going for about 3 months now, it has held up perfectly. So be releasing a video on that at some point in the future, but just know I'm not just throwing MDF trim in here all willy-nilly. Painting the trim and the door facing us the same color as the walls, and I love this. It's one of my biggest regrets in my own house is I wish I'd done that. I think it just makes it much higher end look. Personally, I know a lot of designers seem to be moving this way. I'm not a designer myself. I don't know what's in, what's out, but I know I like this, and I'm hoping to do more of it in the future. There was no backsplash piece for this countertop, so instead I'm just taking a green silicone and running a bead to join it to the wall. It's actually the same color from my house. It's Cavern Moss by Mapei, I believe, but it matched really well to the wall color. So just taking a thin bead, smoothing it out, and trying to get that to look nice and sharp. On some projects, I will rough in the countertop plugs during the rough-in stage. So I'll just have like nail-on boxes. Sometimes I retrofit them like what you're seeing here. So I just leave the wire buried in the wall, make a note, and then cut them out after the fact. Kind of depends on what's going on. So like this wall here was very busy. I just figured keep it closed for now, cut them out later and be able to get the exact location I want. And then kind of wiring all that up, and all the plugs should just be normal receptacles here because the breakers themselves at the panel are GFI protected there. So that's kind of how that works. Got the toilet going in now, and this is the Toto skirted toilet. So they give you the boot install. I love Toto toilets. They're my favorite. Kohler just behind them, but Toto toilets just really nice. You do have to drill quite a few holes through the tile, as you'll see there, for these skirted toilets anyways, but I would much rather do that than try and some of those skirted toilets you get, it's like they want you to get your hand through this tiny little hole to tighten the bolts. It just doesn't make sense. This is a good toilet, flushes well. I really like it. And then they did get a separate bidet seat to go on top. And what can I say? I love bidets myself. Probably favorite feature I put in my bathroom was the bidet toilet. So the seat is going to be just a close second. And there we have it. If you enjoyed this video, if I could maybe just ask you to kindly hit that like button on your way out, or consider subscribing if you are not. If you are located within the Mississauga or surrounding areas here in Canada, you can find my contact information down below. You go to the website, submit a form, and maybe we can work together one day. And of course, here are the rough figures for this project in terms of cost. Keeping in mind, as I always say, these are my numbers and my numbers only. You cannot expect to find another contractor that will price things the exact same way, especially depending on where you live, although even in my area, there will still be a great degree of difference. Anyways, that is it for this one. I really hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful day.